In one of my previous videos, I went through what is natural law and I went through how the theory works. But in this video, I want to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the natural law theory. So let's start with the strengths. Well, it's absolutist and deontological theory. So this means that it allows clear common rules to be established, and from these clear common rules, because they are so easily distinguished, we can form a structured society. So that's one of the strengths. Another one, it's like Kant, it's not based on compassion, feeling, or emotions. It's based on innate human reason. Well, Kant's based on moral duty, but this is as well based on reason. This is based on innate human reason. And innate human reason doesn't change like feelings. What remains right always remains right, and what remains wrong always remains wrong. So this means that when we conduct an action, we're not doing it simply out the urge of the moment. We're doing it for something more. We're doing it because we feel that it's the right or wrong thing, because that's what our reason tells us, and it's something which is unchanged. Again, an absolutist trait. It's also a great method used by the Catholic denomination, especially where the Bible is silent. Genetic engineering, IVF, all these things, the Bible is silent. We have to rely on another ethical theory, which is natural law. It's universal, so even though it's known to be common with the Catholicism, it's universal. It's not really limiting to any kind of race or gender or anything, because it's based on reason, which everyone has. So that's why it's really universal. It's great, like Kant. We can't predict consequences. Okay, so that was the weakness of utilitarians. We can't predict consequences. Therefore, when natural law is based on just on the intrinsic action itself, it makes it easier method to deduce the right consequence, because you just don't know what the outcome's going to be. There is, just like Kant, a high premium on life. Life is sacred, it's looking after, and natural law protects the vulnerable. So it's great in terms of giving respect to life and protecting the vulnerable. It also upholds sort of inalienable human rights, which are applicable to everyone. And so the NLT natural law teachings have been so sort of important that they are integrated into the 1948 UN Declaration of Human Rights. So it's quite an important theory, and it's been quite successful. Casuistry, now this is what applies these clear-cut rules to be applied to individual circumstances in natural law, which is one of its unique selling points. It gives flexibility. So even though Kant's, for example, it would be very inflexible, some would say, natural would be more flexible because it's got casuistry, and we can this basically means we can interpret the rules to apply to our situation, and it's not so hardcore, you must not do this. You can interpret it in different ways. Similarly, on the same hand, we have a weakness. That casuistry by many critics is used pejoratively, because how can something which is an absolutist theory be sort of relativist, if you see what I mean, that there's no like clear-cut rules functioning, because you can apply. And what people say is that people use like clever arguments with casuistry to get out of moral kind of principles which are there. So some people they would just not be happy with that. It's also based on assumptions. So for example, Aquinas says that God created the world, and if we do not fulfill its purpose to the fullest, then this is an imperfection. However, how do we know this? Is it actually true? If all of this fails, and if there is no God where the so-called moral law comes from, the whole theory failed. So and what's more is that it's based on naturalistic fallacy, which means that basically we say that moral law comes from God. Well, we don't say, Aquinas is fact. We ought to follow it. That's a judgment. From a fact that there is a moral law saying that we should kind of follow it, that would be a judgment. So people are saying that you can't move logically from a fact to a judgment. And so people say that it's not really necessary to just follow that judgment. You can identify the rules and then not follow it. Consequences. So what's more important? Is it the actual action itself, or is it the consequence? So for example, if you were hiding a Jew in like the Second World War and the Nazis came to your doorstep, what's more important, that you don't lie and you tell the truth, or is it more important to see the consequences lie to protect the people's lives? What is more important? And you can't work out the purpose of everything because it's really not easy. For example, according to the Catholic Church, sex is there for procreation. But critics would say it's not just for procreation, isn't it? It is for enhancing relationships. And they both have equal weight, because not everyone has sex to have children. It's also to like enhance and strengthen relationships. But which one of them is a primary purpose? There's a lot of, because there's not consensus on that. How can this theory function? So that was why basically those are the strengths and weaknesses of natural law. Overall, it's not a bad theory, but I think the assumptions that it's based on, I don't think they're too successful, and I think they change everything completely. So I hope this video helps, and please visit my blog.